Hi, I'm Mike Beliveau, and today we're at Duelist Den, where I'm going to be shooting this replica of a Leech Rigdon revolver. Now, the Leech Rigdon was a Confederate-made revolver during the Civil War. This replica is made by Uberti in Italy, and it's imported to the United States by Cimarron Firearms of Fredericksburg, Texas. So, let's talk a little bit of the history of this. We'll get it loaded up, and then we'll see what it does at the range. In 1861, Thomas Leech and Charles Rigdon founded a company called the Memphis Novelty Works. And what they were doing was forging swords for the Confederate Army. And that was their primary business when they were in Memphis. But unfortunately for them, General Halleck's armies drove the Confederates out of Memphis, and they were forced to pack up operations and flee and relocate, which they did. When they were driven out of Memphis, they first moved to Columbus, Mississippi, and went back into business there. But it was not long at all before Union troops took over that town and forced them to relocate again to Greensboro, Georgia, which was going to be their final home. Now, when they got to Greensboro, Georgia, they decided to shift their manufacturing operations from sword making to gun making. And that's where the Leech Rigdon revolver was born. As I think everybody who's a student of American history knows, the South was not heavily industrialized. And that put them at a distinct disadvantage in terms of war material when the Civil War kicked off. And handguns were always in short supply. So, luckily, before the war started, a lot of southern states bought handguns for militia purposes, and they had them stocked in their arsenals. But there were never a lot of them. And of course, during the war, material wears out. So the South ended up importing a lot of handguns from Europe. And by and large, they had to outfit their troops differently. In fact, most Southern cavalry used shotguns, not revolvers, as opposed to the Northern cavalry troops who were armed with revolvers and repeating carbines for the most part. So it was primarily officers and anybody who could scrounge one up who had revolvers during the Civil War. Now, I'm not saying only officers had them. Obviously, there were battlefield finds, there were people who got them, but officers predominantly were the ones issued revolvers. So, of course, revolvers coming in from England and Belgium had to run the blockade. A lot of them didn't get through. And the South was looking for homemade, home manufactured in the South revolvers. And Leech Rigdon was one of the ones that rose to the top. And in fact, the Leech Rigdon was one of the most successful Southern revolvers. And when you hear the numbers, you're going to realize that's not saying much. So they produced about 1,500 of this type of gun. And 1,500 is not much, but it puts them right in the top tier of Southern manufacturers. And that, of course, was one of the problems that the South had. And part of the problem for these guys, and for every Southern manufacturer, was that materials were in short supply. So steel was a rare commodity. Now, by this time, most northern guns were made of steel. But in the South, a lot of guns either had bronze or brass frames to save on iron, or they had wrought iron frames. And that is what the Leech Rigdon had. It had a wrought iron frame and a wrought iron cylinder. This gun's a .36 caliber. It's roughly a copy of the 1851 Colt Navy, but with a rounded type dragoon-style barrel, round to half octagon. And the reason for that is probably to save money on the manufacturer, because it's actually less complicated to machine a round barrel than it is an octagon barrel. because with a lathe you can round a barrel pretty easily. You have to be much more precise when you're machining octagon flats, and there's a lot more polishing involved. So in order to save on that expense, time, most Southern revolvers have round barrels. The other thing that differentiates it from the U.S. Army, the Union Navy, is that there will be no roll engraving on the cylinder. The cylinder is blank. Other than that, it looks very much like an 1851 Navy. And to its credit, Uberti does a pretty good job with these. There are really only two major points of departure from the original. One is in the latch for the loading lever, because the latch on this is pure Colt Navy. And that's just wrong, because the Leech Rigdon actually had a kind of unique, almost proprietary latch, I guess. I haven't seen it on other guns. And it's basically a ball detent. So that's a difference, most noticeable difference. The other difference is a little more hidden, and that is that the recoil shield on the right side is milled out with a cap disposal channel, just like the 1851 Colt Navy. And that helps spent caps clear the gun better. But the actual original Leech and Rigdon just had a flat face across the entire recoil shield. They didn't invest in doing that piece of machining. But all Uberti does is they take 1851 Navy parts. This is a 51 Navy frame, grips, trigger guard, hammer, cylinder. They just don't roll engrave it. And the only thing they really make to make it a Leech and Rigdon is this barrel assembly. Okay, so that's where things have a point of departure. It's a 36 caliber gun. 36 caliber guns were primarily what the South used for handguns. Their standard was actually the 1851 Colt Navy revolver, which the states had bought fairly heavily for their armories before secession, when it became illegal to export guns from the North to the South. So there were already a lot of 1851 Colts on hand, and they have the benefit of using less powder and less lead than the 44 caliber guns. So that was a good thing for the South, where resources were more scarce. Now, in terms of copies, like this Leech and Rigdon, where the materials were actually inferior to the materials used in the Colt gun, 36 caliber has another advantage because there's more meat on the cylinders, and these cylinders were made by hand forging, twisted iron rods, basically, and then boring them out. So it's almost made the way medieval swords were made, because the different rods would have, different characteristics. So by mixing that up, you got a product that was going to give you more strength and elasticity than if you just took one batch of wrought iron and forged it out. So that was quite common for the way they made these guns. But having more meat between the cylinders was probably a good thing for safety, because even steel guns like the 1860 Army experienced blow-ups, because for the technology of the time, that was kind of pushing the limits. So, as you've all seen the McCulloch Colts that had the fully fluted cylinders for the 1860 Army, well, a lot of those blew up because there wasn't enough meat on the cylinder, right? So, the fact that these cylinders were just made out of iron made it more important to stick with 36 caliber, which is just going to be safer. On December 13th, 1863, Thomas Leech left the company. And that left Rigdon to look for new business partners, which he found. And in 1863, he reconstituted the company as Rigdon, Ansley and Company in Augusta, Georgia. And they continued to manufacture revolvers. Now, Leech and Rigdon revolvers, like this one, use the standard 6-cylinder stops that you would find on a Colt Navy, right? So each cylinder locks up in battery, and that's it. But the new Rigdon, Ansley and Company revolvers had 12-cylinder stops. And that allowed you to actually lock up. You could lock up the gun between chambers, and instead of using the safety pins, which is a typical Colt thing, you actually had a cylinder stop that locked you in between chambers, which was a very strong way of putting a safety on the gun as far as the cylinder bolt goes. The problem with it was it weakened the area right over the chamber where you had to put that second stop. And Colt later experimented with the same system when they made their 1860 Army cartridge conversion, right, the first Richards conversion. They made a bunch of those with 12-cylinder stops because, of course, when they made the cartridge guns, they realized they had no safe way to carry them. They couldn't carry them on half-cock safely because the trigger spur is just too weak. Any blow will break that off. They no longer had the pins between chambers because they had a firing pin on the gun now. And the firing pin wasn't long enough to be able to put a dimple in the cylinder face and use a firing pin to hold it, right? So they ended up going from a 6-shooter to a practical 5-shooter when they went to cartridge guns. So they tried that 12-stop. They found that it was just not safe. They were blowing out chambers. But, obviously on this gun, which is a 36, there's a little more meat over the chamber, and it seems to have held okay. So that's the main way that you can determine if you have a Leech and Rigdon or a Rigdon and Ansley gun, is by the number of cylinder stops on the cylinder. So let's load this thing up and see what it'll do. Okay, we're gonna get the Leech and Rigdon loaded up, and this is a 36 caliber gun, and there are 2 ways to load it. There's using loose powder and lead balls, or paper cartridges. Now, as a military gun, this gun would have been loaded more often probably with paper cartridges than with loose powder and ball. But we're going to do it both ways, and we're going to start off with the loose powder and ball, just so you can see how it's done. So, I'm going to take the gun, I'm going to put it on half cock. That allows the cylinder to spin. I'm going to get a 20 grain powder charge. I'm using 3F Swiss powder. So I'll put the powder in the chamber. Make sure we got it all. Okay, now I'm going to take a lubricated felt wad. I'm going to put that over the powder, and I'm using a 3.380 inch round ball. Now, a 375 generally will work fine in these guns. I'm using a 380 because I find that on these Ubertis, let me get this down, it's got a stiff latch. I find that on these Ubertis, because they're actually made for conicals, okay, and we're just going to seat it down. And you can see that I cut a ring of lead off. Try to get that out so it's, see it in my hand? Right, that little ring of lead that shows that the chamber is completely sealed. You're not going to get a chain fire out of that gun because there's no way that you can get a flame down past it. All right, so I'm going to load 6 just like that. I know I used to generally load 5, but I just want to show you how they would have loaded them in the day in the military, because they would have loaded 6 and used the safety pins. So that's what I'm going to do today. All right, I've loaded 6 chambers, and I'm going to cap them with Remington number 10 percussion caps. Now, I realize caps are hard to find. And oops, from the comments I get, I think some of you guys think that I have some secret stash. Get this where you can see it. That I have some secret stash. Maybe I get them direct from the manufacturers or something like that. So I get those questions from you all the time. That's not the case. It just so happens that before things got tight, I had made a cap purchase. And I typically buy caps 10,000 at a time. Okay, there's all 6. You can see between each of the chambers is a little pin. I'm going to lower the hammer on that and fit it in. All right, now we're safe with 6 shots. Now I'm going to be honest. The safest way to carry one of these guns is with the hammer resting on an empty chamber, because those pins, they can break off, and they used to break off all the time. But that's the way they would have carried them in the 19th century. And in the interest of historical accuracy, that's the way I'm going to shoot this one. But back to the caps. I don't have a secret pipeline. I don't have manufacturers feeding them to me. Before things got tight, I had just made a purchase of 10,000 caps. And it takes me a while to go through 10,000 caps, right? So these last 2 years, I've been eating my way through my caps just like you guys have. Now, I'll be honest with you, I keep my eyes open. So in the last year, I was able to buy 1,400 additional caps. Some CCIs, I bought 1,000 RWS 1075s, which are excellent. So it just so happens that I now have, I think, 3,000 RWS 1075s, and I've probably got about 4,000 Remington number 10s left. So I've gone through quite a few caps, but luckily I still have a bunch, and if things don't ease up fairly soon, I'm going to be out of caps just like you guys. So, you know, I'm hoping that the supply comes on board. But if you keep your eyes open, you can find them. Whenever I go into a gun store, if I don't see them on display, I ask if they have some. That's how I scored 400 CCI caps, because they had them in the back room. And I asked. So you do the same thing. And I don't have some secret cap mine that I can dig into. I just happen to stockpile them when I see them. So let's go shoot this baby. Well, in 1863, General Robert E. Lee was closing in on Gettysburg, not that far from here, and his scouts and foraging parties were out as far as the Susquehanna River, where they are terrorizing the farmers around Blymire's Hollow. Now, Evil Roy, he might be evil, but he was no traitor. He was a good Union man. So he organized his gang of outlaws to oppose the rebel foraging parties. Too bad for him. Well, let's see what we can do against them with the Leech and Rigdon. All right, I gave it a minute to make sure it wasn't going to cook off. I recapped it, and let's see if it goes off. And it did. Okay. And when you get a cap that goes like that, and the charge doesn't go off, you got to give it a minute, because you never know what's cooking in there. Well, by and large, we did pretty good on Evil Roy. We got a pretty good group going, and knowing that these things generally shoot high, I aimed right at his crotch. So we're not all that much high, shooting a little bit to the left. Not bad with the round balls. Well, today I'm going to do the rest of my shooting with conical bullets rolled up in paper cartridges. And I made those using a Guns of the West cartridge making kit that I got from Dustin Weniger at Guns of the West. So you've seen me do that before, and I'm not gonna take up your time with another video. Just for those of you who are new, go look on the channel. You can see plenty of paper cartridge videos on there. But that's what I'm going to be using for the rest of the day. So let's load some up. All right, I'm just going to take a paper cartridge, line it up with the chamber, rotate it underneath the rammer. There we go. And push it in. And that's all there is to it. I'm just going to load up 6. Well, Evil Roy's day is not going to get any better. So we kind of peppered them up with the round balls just to get an idea where they're shooting. And now I'm loaded up with conicals. And I'm going to aim at the same place and see where we hit them. So look out, Evil Roy. Well, that's not bad. The conical's printed a little bit higher and a little more centered on the target. So, either way, bad day for Evil Roy. Well, I think it's time to give poor old Evil Roy a break. And I'm going to try to take out some clay birds. And we'll see. Because I know I'm shooting a good 5 inches high. So, I'm going to use the paper cartridges, and hopefully I know where to aim. And let's see if I can get any of them. Maybe not. Okay, maybe. All right. Lost a cap. Well, all things considered, considering the sights on this thing, that it's shooting high, that I'm just getting old and worthless, I don't feel too bad about that. Well, I think you guys know how much I hate to leave a target standing. I feel like they're mocking me. So I got that one clay bird hanging out there. I just can't stand leaving them there, so I'm going to try to clear them out. Wish me luck. Got him. Well, solved that little problem. Well, I'm going to share some final thoughts on the Leech Rigdon replica revolver. First, let me apologize. I had 2 more rounds of actual shooting planned for this video. I was going to do a cylinder full over in Swing City on Swing and Sam and the Circle Gang, and I was going to be giving Hans up his debut for the year. Unfortunately, a rain shower came by, and I had to scramble just to get my gear under cover and hop in the truck with it and wait it out. Luckily, it's let up a little bit now. We have been having, like a lot of the country, terrible spring weather this year. We had a really mild winter, as those things go, but spring has been cold and wet, colder than normal, wetter than normal, snowier than normal. I mean, we got snow well into almost late April over here. And in fact, the leaves are about 2 weeks behind on fully leafing out on the trees here at Duelist Den because it's mid-May now. So today was my best shot weather-wise because it was only supposed to be spotty showers, and I thought maybe I'd get through dry, but that didn't quite happen. So missed a little bit of shooting. But in general, shot this enough, probably 40 shots today, counting up everything. Shot enough to have some impressions of it. First of all, it's a good, solid revolver. I mean, Uberti did their job. You saw me polish it up, but in general, it's a well-made revolver. It operates very well. It's fairly accurate. I mean, for the type of tool it is and the way I'm shooting it. With round balls, it was quite accurate. I was getting, really shooting a 2-inch group with the round balls. You can't fault that. So, on that score, it's quite good. I had only one failure to fire, and that was in the first cylinder full, and therefore it was probably my fault. There was probably something obstructing the vent, maybe a little bit of moisture or a drop of oil or something. It went off of the second cap. That's fine. I had no cap jams, and that's a testimony to the way I clean out the safety notch in the hammer. So no cap jams, no real malfunctions, except for one thing. One of the nipples is small. small in diameter. And caps were consistently falling off of that one nipple. Everything else was holding fine. And I'd come to that one and find it bare of cap several times. Luckily, I had a tin of caps in my cap pouch, so I could cap it on the line without having to walk back to the loading table and get them. But that's not good. You know, that's pretty basic tolerances there. But that said, I'll probably put slick shots on this anyway, because it just makes them run better. And this is a gun that deserves to be run. As far as Confederate copies go, I know a lot of people really like the Griswold and Gunnison brass frame. And for me, I happen to like the Spiller and Burr brass frame because it's not going to stretch. And because it's the right size for a 36. It's good and compact. I really like that. But as Confederate revolvers go, I like this a lot. Because it's a steel frame revolver. It'll hold up for you. It's got good Confederate looks, so if you're a reenactor who portrays a Confederate soldier, well, this is a good gun for you to have in terms of it looks right, and it'll last you as a good shooting weapon as well, if that's what you want. If all you want is a good showy gun, well, the Griswold and Gunnison replicas are quite good for that. But if you want a long-term shooter, last you for the rest of your life and your grandkids' life, I think you can't do better than this for a Confederate gun. I like it just fine. I also like the Danson brothers for the same reason, because it's got a good steel frame. But I would give this 2 thumbs up. I think it's an excellent gun. So where do we go from here? Well, I got interested now in Confederate guns. And it just so happens that I happen to have a bunch of replicas. I've got a Griswold and Gunnison. I've got a Danson Brothers. I've got a Spiller and Burr. I've got a Lama, however you want to say it. So I have quite a few Confederate guns, and I think it may be time to do one of the long-form historical videos, firearms history, on the revolvers of the Confederacy. So to that end, I have ordered a big stack of books on Confederate arms, and I'm going to bone up on the subject, so I don't tell you no lies. And that's going to be an upcoming video, the revolvers of the Confederacy. So I hope you like it, and of course this guy will be in there, along with lots of pictures of the originals if I can find them. So that's what's coming up. But if you like this video, if you like seeing the Leech Rigdon in action, give it a thumbs up. It helps with the algorithm, as you well know. If you're not a subscriber, hit subscribe. Love to have you. Got plenty more stuff coming. You'll see a link below to the MikeBeliveau.com website. The website's back up, and I'm going to officially announce it in a channel update soon. I'm still getting some content up there, but there's plenty of content in there now. There are 3 or 4 blog posts. There is a huge photo gallery that you can go through. I've got 16, as I talked today, 16 magazine articles, past magazine articles of mine loaded to the magazine article archive. And the videos are automatically linking to YouTube, or should be by the time I say this. So my developer, who's right here in Pennsylvania, is doing a great job pulling that together. So go ahead and check it out. Comments are enabled in several areas. So if you got a comment, let me know. The contact me button works. You can fill out that form and I will get your email and might even answer you. Depends on what you said. So go check out that website and stay tuned. Within a couple of weeks, I'll be doing a soft launch of it for you guys on YouTube. But I can always use beta testers, so I'm sure you guys can get out there and do it. So it's MikeBeliveau.com. You can also, if you Google Duelist Den, it comes up. It should be coming up in a lot of black powder Googles, because I've been out there loading stuff for about a month now. And like I said, I'm going to try to have 25 magazine articles when I do the soft launch here for you guys to read, but it covers the whole gamut. You'll find reloading, you'll find black powder, you'll find flintlock, cap and ball, some modern stuff. tried to cover the whole gamut with samples to get things going. I'm going to continue to load them, and there will be, by the time I'm done, unless I kick the bucket before then, I hope to have my entire magazine body of work stored on that website. So, if you want to see what I wrote 35 years ago, you'll be able to find it there. So that's the goal ultimately. So go check it out. I know I'm rattling on, taking a lot of your time. So until next week, bye.